Hi, welcome to Chicago Style Eats, the show where we talk about tasty foods invented in Chicago. I'm Tony.
I'm Stephanie.
And this week we're talking about gyros.
What the fuck? Gyros come from Greece. How are we claiming anything about them?
Well, this is true. Gyros was not invented in Chicago. And that's another thing I learned, that gyros is singular. It is a gyros, not
a euro.
It's not a euro or a number of euros.
And make sure you pronounce it correctly. It's not gyros.
Not gyros.
It's euros.
Gyros. No. Anyway, it was not invented in Chicago, but Chicago's name is fastened to gyros around the world, and around the country, around the world. And how did that happen? That happened by, first of all, letting us know how gyros got here to begin with. Gyros is a Greek word, or gyros comes from the Greek word that means to turn. So if you're at all familiar with gyros, you remember the rotisserie, and they've cut the meat off of that and put it on your bread. But gyros actually arrived in Greece from Turkey, where it is known as doner. I don't know. Doner. D-O-N-E-R, as we spell it. And it made its way to Greece, and then the Greeks brought it to the United States. Originally, the Greek version is actually a whole muscle piece on a rotisserie. It was usually made with pork, but
white meat pork.
And when they adapted it to the American palate, they started making it out of lamb and beef, because Americans, we like beef.
So we like pork too. Not sure why that changed.
The way Chicago comes into the picture, it was they were originally cuts of whole muscle slab that were stacked onto a skewer and then pressed down, and they would cut the meat off of that. But the process to get the meat pressed and all that was very time-consuming and labor-intensive. You needed strong people to push the meat down. And back in the early mid-1960s, a young man named Peter Parthenis, who was an immigrant and
from Greece,
and an engineering student
at the University of Illinois.
He was asked by one of the restaurant owners, because he being Greek, he was going to the Greek restaurants because he wanted the taste of home. And he got to know some of the owners, and the owners of the restaurants were saying to him, "You're an engineering student. Help us find parts for these rotisserie machines that we imported from Greece that break down a lot." So he spent some time and earned, I guess, a few bucks just helping them find the parts and then repairing the machines. And then he thought, well, I'm an engineer. Why don't I design and make my own machine
that won't break down?
Won't break down. It'll be easy to repair, because he could, make the parts or manufacture the parts and have them done. So he did that. He spent a couple of years, and he got a machine that worked and did what it was supposed to do. And so while he was marketing that, he realized, I could make even more money if I manufactured the meat for this machine to use. And so through that process, he came up with a ground meat mixture of lamb and beef into a cone. And he perfected the manufacturing process of making that cone and making it cost efficient, not so labor intensive, and easier to produce all around.
He equated it to IBM and how IBM created computers, and yet Microsoft created the software. And so his machine was the hardware, but the meat in its cone shape was the software. And he realized he could save the restaurants money, and he could make money by selling the software more than the hardware.
So he eventually created the company called Grecian Delights, and his meat cone inspired other companies. Now there are several companies, all in the Chicago area, that make the gyros meat cone that is distributed across the country. And that is how Chicago attaches its name to gyros, by the fact that the meat cone that is used everywhere is most likely made in Chicago. Some restaurants make their own, but go ahead.
The concept of having the meat cone and having it in a ground meat format and having it shipped to you frozen is what was invented in Chicago. And his first cones that went out of Chicago went to Atlanta and were eaten there. So
by bus.
By Greyhound bus.
Frozen.
Put
on a Greyhound bus and shipped
coolers,
to Atlanta.
In coolers.
And it was shipped to Atlanta because that was his first customer for the meat cone. Yeah. But that's how Chicago became synonymous, sort of, with gyros.
Yeah. So Greek immigrants creating a new, easy process to sell really delicious food.
Mm-hmm. So, as gyros is a Chicago iconic food, and the book lists one of the places as Central Gyros, we went to Central Gyros.
Which is a Greek restaurant. It's not just like a little hot hamburger stand.
Not a stand or anything. And we ordered the gyros sandwich. So you got your pita bread, which is fresh, and you put the meat on it. And they put the onions and the tomato and drizzle with tzatziki, and then you give it to you and you stick it in your face. I don't know that I have ever had a bad gyros sandwich. Yeah. I've had sandwiches that were maybe the bread was a little dry or a little stale. I've had some where they didn't put a whole lot of ingredients on, but it's always been very tasty.
Yeah, I mean, gyros is very tasty, and personally I feel like you can't have too much tzatziki sauce. That's the yogurt, garlic, and cucumber sauce that makes a gyros.
Yeah.
And then the gyros has onions and tomato, and the tomatoes give it a nice little element of freshness. Mm-hmm. I thought it was very delicious, as are gyros. I do like the meat to be a little bit crunchier, but the gyros was really tasty.
Yeah. So, there's not much to say about the gyros sandwich. It's go to any place that serves gyros in Chicago, and they're basically the same.
Yeah.
It's the only notable thing would be if they did it wrong, and
like put lettuce on it.
Yeah, that, or they forget to put something on it, like the meat.
No, you gotta have the tzatziki sauce too.
But, so where does the book say?
The book recommends Hubs at 5540 North Lincoln Avenue, Mr. Gyros, 234 South Halsted Street, Athenian Room, 807 West Webster Avenue, and Central Gyros, 3127 North Central Avenue. And of course, you can get gyro kits at Greek grocery stores and such. So, go out and have some gyros. Enjoy.
Coming up on the next Chicago Style Eats.
Put your elbows on the counter. Place your feet exactly 2.5 feet. Lean into the counter and the sandwich. Shove it in your face and dig into it.
If you like this episode, click the thumbs up icon below. Don't like it? Let us know in the comments what might make it better. Want to see more Chicago Style Eats? Click the subscribe button below so you can get an alert each time we drop a new episode. Don't know what the heck we're doing? Click on the end screen or the link in the description below to see our intro video. Thanks for watching.